Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back for day two of the Strong Body, Strong Mind Challenge. And today, day two is all about helping you move like an athlete. Okay, I want to help you guys understand the processes and formula that I would use if I was working with somebody so that you can get out there and you can achieve your fitness goals. Whether you are somebody that's looking to take their performance to the next level as a professional athlete, or whether you are someone that's simply looking to get started on your journey and see where it will take you. So let's get started. Hopefully, this will be slightly shorter than day one. So, as I said, day two, how you can build a body that not only looks great, but feels good and performs like an athlete. For me, as a coach, there's no point in having a body that looks great, but you're in pain every day and you can't perform. The same way, there's no point. Most people aren't going to want to have a body that performs really well, but it doesn't look very good and it doesn't make you very proud. So, of course, there are hundreds and thousands of coaches out there, and there are many different ways to skin a cat. To cook, skin a cat is what I meant to say in there. And what I mean by that is every coach may have a different way to get you to the end result. But today I'm going to share with you my kind of philosophy and what I've been working with after 20 years of training myself and about 10 years of coaching others both in person and online, with probably at least 10,000 hours worth of coaching experience with loads of different people from different backgrounds and age groups. So hopefully you'll find this valuable. So important to remember, guys, the human body is a complex organism, a very genius organism that is designed to move, okay? Unfortunately, over time, the way that we operate, the way that we live our lives has changed a lot. And in the modern day, we seem to be focused so much on technology and our lives involve so little movement. But the body was created to run, jump, swim, throw, shuffle, roll. And a lot of the things that we do in sport when we're young, we lose as we get older, which is a real shame because the body was designed to move and designed to do these activities. And that's something that I want you to remember when you're trying to build out your program, when you're trying to get fit and healthy. You know, it's hopefully about more than just building muscle and looking good. It's about utilizing the full function of the human body. And like as I said here, most of us probably not aware, but the human body is made up almost 600 muscles, 206 bones, and 360 joints, showing how complex we are and the amount of movement we are capable of. So, the process of building a strong, fit, and functional body. Step one, what do you need to do? You need to analyze your needs, okay? And this is the first step I will use with any individual I'm training is understanding what their needs are. Are you a runner? Are you a pro MMA fighter that is looking to make their way to the UFC? Are you a football player? What is the end goal you want to achieve? If you play your sport, the sport is probably the end goal. You want to be fitter, faster, stronger, and most importantly, you don't want to get injured in your sport. Okay, if you're someone that is just starting your fitness journey, maybe you are just looking to lose some weight, build some muscle, and live a healthier lifestyle. You need to get very clear on what it is that you want to achieve, because without that, it's very difficult to build out a training program around it. Everything starts with the goals and the needs of the individual. And obviously, if you're playing a sport, the first thing I'll do as a coach is understand the nature of the sport. Is it a team sport? What movement patterns does it require? Is it straight line or linear? What's the duration of the sport? Is it broken down into like combat sport where it's shorter intervals with rest periods in between? What are the different energy systems that are required? Okay, so if it's sport related, we really need to break down the sport into its component and see what are the physical requirements from that sport. Okay, so once we've analyzed the needs in terms of your goals, the sport, etc., the first thing I will then do is complete a movement assessment and look at your movement capacity. So I'll look at things like whether you can squat well, can you hinge properly, what are you like jumping and landing, can you do it on a double and single leg, And these are essentially just ways for us to look at your movement patterns to make sure I'm not going to program exercises into a program that are going to injure you or you can't yet do them properly. Okay, we need to assess your mobility. So what is the mobility like at the ankle, the hip, the thoracic spine, and shoulder? So to give you an example, I work with a lot of tennis players and a lot of them will have shoulder mobility issues from being hunched and rounded all the time. So if we can improve that shoulder mobility, potentially that's going to help with things like their serve, and it's going to improve their power, providing they can build strength through the range of motion. Also very important is looking at previous injuries and how they may influence your movement capacity. Because despite you thinking you've fully recovered, often injuries that you've had 5 years ago, 10 years ago, may never have been rehabbed properly and can still have a big impact on your movement. The reason I do this stuff, which a lot of people won't do, hopefully most good S&C coaches will do, is this is important to make sure that we are ironing out any kind of deficiencies in your movement so that we don't want to try and get you strong if you in bad movement patterns, okay? Because if we load you up and your movement is poor or you've got a lot of asymmetries, then that might just potentially make things worse and injure you. Okay, so another part of the overall assessment would be to look at your health. So even as an athlete, these are just as important as if it's just a general population coming to me. So we want to have a look at things like your body composition. Okay, so how much of your body is water? How much of your body is muscle? How much is fat? Your body composition is going to be critical, both in terms of an everyday person that just wants to look better and feel good, and as an athlete, because often if you're going to be carrying way too much fat, then that's going to have a big impact on your performance. Another one is your resting heart rate. Your resting heart rate is a really good, simple and easy thing to use and a good way to get an idea of your cardiovascular health and fitness. Okay, if your resting heart rate is really high, then potentially we have got issues that we need to sort. We don't want to be giving you high intensity interval training and things like that if your heart rate is already sitting high. And again, this one could be just as much for athletes that may have heart issues than it could be for people that haven't trained for a long time and are overweight. We may do some blood testing to look at any deficiencies. So looking at your hormones, cholesterol, things that potentially could be genetic or could be lifestyle related, potential things like diabetes, etc. Just to clear everything out and make sure that we can build a personalized program for you to the best of our ability. Again, your BOLT score, if you look at Oxygen Advantage BOLT score, that is related to your basically your oxygen efficiency, how well you can breathe, how well you can hold your breath as well. So check that out. It's also something I've been reading up on that I think is very beneficial. Okay, once we have done both of them, then we can analyze your fitness. Okay, so this is the next part, what I will do. And obviously, this is going to be a little bit dependent on what we're training for. So if your goal is very much strength-based, yeah, I might still do a little bit of muscular endurance and aerobic capacity just to get an idea of where you're at and see if we can try and improve that. Me as a coach personally, I think we shouldn't neglect any physical quality. I think by building endurance, that can also still help with our strength in terms of our recovery. So I don't think we should neglect any kind of muscular fitness capacity, but I do think we need to train specifically for what we want to work for, whether it's your sport or your individual goal. So these are some of the key categories that we can look at and test. Strength would just be your generic strength testing. Depending on the level of the athlete, it might be like a 1 rep max or a 3 rep max. We may look at things like a back squat, a single leg squat variation. We may look at a deadlift, overhead press, pull-ups, etc. Power, some common and simple tests I use for power might be like a med ball throw. It may be some kind of broad jump or vertical jump. Again, that is going to be sport dependent. There's also a lot of technology we can use nowadays to help measure power, so putting things on bars, etc., to measure the velocity. Aerobic and anaerobic capacity. So aerobic, potentially we may use a bleep test or a VO2 max test on a bike, depends on what we have available to us. Anaerobic capacity, again, I like to use potentially, if we've got it, something like a assault bike, or we can do some interval-based running. Obviously, for people that are doing team-based sports, speed and agility are going to be very important. So looking at those components, it might be more acceleration rather than top speed, depending on the length we're going to be working. So obviously, if I'm working with a football player even, their testing may be different to a basketball player or a tennis player. So the sport is going to be important in how we define what tests we're going to use. Again, muscular endurance, that could be things like hold, so isometric, where we may be holding a wall sit for an amount of time, or a split squat, different things along those lines. If you're unsure on any of these and you're interested in learning about which ones are right for you, please do reach out and we can have a chat and decide which tests would be the right ones for you to be using. Okay, so once we have done our full assessment and we understand we've done our movement, we've done our health, we've done our fitness. The next step is to understand your personal strengths and weaknesses. Okay, once you have done all of your assessments, then we can actually look at this in comparison to the needs analysis of the sport or your goals that you're working towards. And then we can start to work out, okay, well, maybe my strength is really good right now, actually, and it is more the power component, or potentially it might be the endurance of the strength that I need for my sport. So give an example of a MMA fighter. They may have really good strength and power, but their ability to sustain that strength and power for the duration of 3 rounds for 5 minutes or 5 rounds for 5 minutes is poor. So that could be a key area that we need to work on to help them improve their performance. Because what we're finding is that unless they win the fight in the first round, they're starting to gas out and lose that strength and power by the second and third. Okay, once we've done strengths and weaknesses, then we can start step 3, which now we can start to formulate a training program. And hopefully you can see from this why it is beneficial not to just pick up any random training program off the internet and give it a go, because you're missing a lot out. If you're just going straight into a program without any analysis done beforehand of yourself, of your goals, of your sport, it's hard to formulate the same level of training program. So some of the key questions for you to think about, and if you've got your notepad as well, you can jot these questions down or jot answers to them. So question 1 is, what movements are you comfortable with and are you willing to learn new methods and exercises? So for example, one thing I'll look at if I'm working with someone, particularly if I can't see them in person, I'm not going to ask, I need to find out, okay, can they do a back squat? Have they back squat before? Can they deadlift? I'm only going to program someone movements that I know they're already efficient with, or we're going to sit down, we're going to do some video analysis together so that we can iron out their technique first. The second one is down to the individual, and do they want stuff that is simple, they want to just get the job done and get results, or are they open to learning new methods and exercises? So for example, a simple one here, Olympic lifting and derivatives of Olympic lifting can be great, but they can be very time consuming. We can get similar results from doing other movements and exercises. So it really depends how much time is available and is that individual bothered about learning this new skill or exercise. Next, how many days a week do you plan to train? Okay, so what is your current availability and how much time can you commit to your training plan? Break that down into what days of the week are ideal for you to train, how much time can you allocate on each day. Then we need to think about what equipment you have available and what is the time frame you want to achieve your goals by. Okay, this is where talking with a coach is really important to give you a realistic idea of how long it will take for you to achieve your goals. And sit down with you and work out, okay, particularly if you're doing a sport, like working with MMA fighters, I need to get an idea from them. What days are their intense training days in terms of technical sport? What days are sparring days? And then we can try to build the S&C around that. Okay, for most people doing sport, the sport is the main objective, not the gym and the training. And therefore, we want to do the minimal dosage we can get to maximum effect. Okay, some people might enjoy spending hours in the gym and training because that is their form of physical activity. But if you're doing a sport, then obviously your sport needs to be the main component, and your S&C and your training needs to be simply to allow you to perform better at your sport. Okay, next. Some fundamental principles that we need to think about when we are building our program. Number one, specificity. Okay, is our training program specific to our sport, to us as an individual, and to our goals? Because if we're just following a very general program, then it's not necessarily going to help us achieve our goals. If my goal is to achieve 10 pull-ups and my training program doesn't have any form of overhead pulling in it, then that's going to be an issue. It's not specific to my goal. If I am a MMA fighter and I want to improve my punching power, but I haven't got any kind of ballistic throwing exercises in there, it's not specific. Okay, so that's it, really important. Next, I kind of often you'll see these two compared, which is the P and the O, which is progressive overload. And progressive overload basically means that over time, whether that's individual sessions or on a weekly basis, monthly basis, we are increasing the amount of stimulus that we are putting on our body through training. That could be through increasing the load of the weights. It could be by reducing rest periods. It could be by increasing the difficulty of the exercises. But there needs to be a clear way that we are progressively overloading. And that doesn't mean just doing some random jumps and increments. And that's why it's really important that we track what we are doing with our training so that we can do small and steady increments over time. The next factor, the next principle is R for recovery. And this basically is the principle that if we do not allow time to recover from our training, we will not see adaptation. If all we do is training and we don't give significant recovery in the form of nutrition, rest, etc., then we're going to quickly get overloaded, we're going to get burnt out, and we won't see results. We may actually end up getting injured or having illnesses. The next R stands for reversibility, and reversibility basically in simple terms means if we are not training regularly and we rest and we just have a break, our training effect, the growth that we've seen is going to be reversed. Okay, so if I've done a good block of running to improve my aerobic endurance, and now all of a sudden I stop that running for the next 2 months, then a lot of those effects and improvements I've seen are going to be reversed. Finally, the last principle is individual response. And this basically refers to how we as individuals will respond differently to different exercises, to different training programs. And this is something that we can monitor now through looking at things like genetics. So there are programs such as DNA Fit that will allow us to look at how we are going to respond to different exercise, our rest periods required, etc. But this is also a learning game, and we can learn through time what things we respond best to. Okay, so next up, I've got some examples of different training splits depending on what approach you want to take and what your goal is. So in the blue, we have got 2 different ways to structure a 3-day training split based on a mixed approach, meaning that we are trying to kind of work on a number of different things at the same time. So mixed approach 1, the top left, we've got day 1, which is a strength and power focus. Day 2 is more of a hypertrophy, muscle mass focus. And day 3, which is anaerobic capacity. So this might be great for a rugby player, potentially a forward or a back, in their preseason, looking to make sure they're combining a number of different focus points. Okay, this may also be good for a MMA fighter in maybe an 8-week training camp where they need to focus on a number of different things at once. Mixed approach 2, similar, but day 1 strength, day 2 speed and power, day 3 endurance. So we've got different emphasis each day. In the green, we've got a strength focus program, and we've got 2 different ways that we could lay that out based on a 3-day-a-week program. Okay, what you may say is you want to do 5 days a week training. That is fine. Okay, what you might do, for example, you might do push, pull, legs, rest day, push, pull. Or you may do push, pull, legs, rest day, push and pull together for upper body, and then legs on the 5th day. Okay, mixing up the exercises a little bit. Finally, we've got endurance focused in the reds, and this would be someone looking more to focus on their endurance. So we've got day 1, a HIIT training session, day 2, continuous, which may be a long run, a long swim, long cycle, etc. And day 3, which would be circuits, which again might be a 45-minute session based on circuits with an endurance focus to the circuits. Okay, important, act, implement and evaluate. So once you have built your training program, you've done your initial assessments, generally there's so many ways to do this, but you might split your training block into cycles. So decide what is the overall time frame you're working in. So let's say you're working in a 12-week block, then you may break that down into 3 sets of 4-week cycles. Depending on how you want to periodize and plan your training, it may be that phase 1, cycle 1 is focusing on movement quality and just making sure you're moving well. Cycle 2 might be focused more on strength and building strength with the movement quality. And then finally, cycle 3 might be more power-based and building upon the strength that we've built. Or, as I said, undulating wave periodization where we may have different qualities that we're focusing on in the same block. The main thing really is that you follow through with your plan and that you are consistent, okay? You stick to it, you give it a good go, you turn up and you give the intensity to it. And then at the end of each block, you can reassess, redo your testing and analysis and see what needs to be focused on for the next block. Okay, team, I hope you found that very beneficial and useful. Remember, that is day 2 complete. Hopefully you found that you took a lot of value from that. Sit down, go through the questions I've asked you, think about your personal goals, your sport, and make sure to join me for day 3, where we're going to be covering how to fuel your body correctly to get the most out of training and life. Stay tuned, team. See you tomorrow.